Okay, welcome everyone to The Deep Dive. Have you ever seen a cat that, looks like it stepped straight out of the jungle?
But it's actually just chilling on the sofa.
Exactly. That's the Bengal cat. And today we're diving deep into this really fascinating breed. We've got a great source article here laying out all the breed info, characteristics, basically the essentials.
That's right. And our goal here is, well, to cut through all the extra noise and give you the core information straight from this source. Think of it as like your shortcut to understanding what makes these cats so unique.
Yeah, from their wild looks to what they actually need day to day. And honestly, some of the details in here are pretty surprising. Let's start at the beginning, their origins. They're not typical, are they?
Not at all. The source immediately points out they're a hybrid breed, descended from domestic cats crossed with the wild Asian leopard cat. And that foundation, that wild link, it's kind of crucial for understanding everything else about them.
Okay, so that wild connection is key. And the article mentions this generation system, F1, F2, F3, and then F4 onwards. It says only F4 or later is really considered domestic. Why is that F4 number so important, according to the source?
Well, that distinction matters a lot because the source explains that those earlier generations, the F1s, F2s, F3s, they're seen as closer to their wild side.
Ah, okay.
And because of that, they might face certain ownership restrictions.
Right, and the source actually names specific places. It says Bengals are banned outright in Hawaii and New York City. So wow, that hybrid origin has real, legal consequences even today.
Exactly. It's not just ancient history.
So moving on from the origins,
Yeah.
the most obvious thing maybe, their appearance. It's stunning.
Oh, absolutely. The source really highlights that their coat is the main event, doesn't it? That bold pattern. It looks so much like a little leopard or maybe an ocelot. That's what they're prized for.
Definitely eye-catching. The article talks about two main patterns, right? Spotted or marbled.
Yep, spotted or marbled. But the really unique detail the source points out.
The rosettes.
Exactly, the rosettes. It says Bengals are the only domestic breed that can have these markings. You know, those little donut-shaped spots you see on leopards? That's a direct visual link back to their Asian leopard cat ancestor. It's literally written on their fur.
That is so cool. A wild marking on a house cat. And the source describes their fur texture. Too dense, short, super soft, it says.
Yeah, and a bit like money hair, which is quite a description.
It is, and they come in various colors mentioned in the article: brown, silver, snow, even some others like chocolate or lavender variations.
And it's not just the coat, their whole build is different. The source calls them alive, agile, long, muscular.
They sound athletic just from the description.
They are typically 8 to 15 pounds, but their body length often makes them look bigger than your average house cat.
And those long legs the article mentions makes them great jumpers, apparently.
Definitely. You combine that build, the coat, and those striking eye colors, the source lists brown, yellow, orange, green. You get this, well, this powerful, almost wild look, but in a domestic cat size.
It's quite the package.
But here's where it gets really interesting, according to the source. That wild appearance, it often contrasts sharply with their actual personality.
Right, that's the paradox, isn't it? The source describes them as soft, sweet, loving, affectionate even.
Yeah, definitely not ferocious like they might look. They're generally gregarious, sociable cats, though the source does note they might pick a favorite person in the family.
Okay, a bit of favoritism perhaps. And what about getting along with others? Kids, other pets?
The source says they generally do great with children, other cats, even family dogs, but there's a condition.
Ah, the catch. Early socialization.
Exactly. If they're introduced to kids and other animals when they're young, it usually goes well. But the source warns that trying to bring a new pet into a home with an older Bengal who wasn't socialized early, that could be tricky.
Okay. So that early exposure is really key for harmony later on.
Gotcha. And the source heavily emphasizes their intelligence. They're described as highly intelligent and intensely curious.
Which means trouble. Or just...
Busy. It means they need constant stimulation. They're super playful, high energy levels. And here's a fun fact from the article. They often love water.
Get out.
Really. A cat that likes water.
Yep. It says they might actually enjoy playing in shallow water, like a tub. Not guaranteed for every Bengal, of course, but it's a known trait.
That's amazing. And trainable, too, the source mentions.
Highly trainable. Because they're so smart, you can teach them tricks. Walk them on a leash.
Walking a cat on a leash, I can picture it. And they talk, too. The source says a bit chatty.
A bit chatty is how it puts it. Apparently, they're good at letting you know what they want. The article even describes this royal greeting you might get when you come home.
A serenade.
Kind of like a welcoming meow fest. It quotes a behaviorist, Marilyn Krieger, who talks about their loud vocalizations, but also mentions they can make melodious sounds, even singing duets.
Singing duets. Wow. And that fits with the loyalty mentioned too, right? Chatty and maybe attached to one person. It all paints a picture. So the takeaway on temperament from the source isn't really wildness, but more like high-octane intelligence and energy. They need engagement.
Right. Which leads directly into what they need to, live happily.
Exactly. Building on that energy and smarts, the source is pretty clear. Where they live isn't as important as who they live with.
So size doesn't matter as much as closeness? An apartment is okay if you're home a lot?
That's what the source suggests. They want to be near their people. Proximity is key.
Okay. But they still need stuff, right? Activities.
Oh, absolutely. Providing things to do and, crucially, things to climb is vital. The article specifically recommends at least one sturdy cat tree and lots of toys.
Makes sense for an athletic cat. And what if you work long hours? Does the source have advice for that?
It does. It suggests considering a second cat if the Bengal's going to be alone a lot. Companionship, but also just to give them someone to play with and keep them amused.
Good tip.
Yeah.
What about that prey drive the source mentioned earlier?
Right. That's still a factor in their living needs. They apparently love watching birds or squirrels outside. So the source recommends setting up comfy window perches, maybe carpeted ones.
Give them their own little nature TV?
Pretty much. And remember that jumping ability and curiosity?
Oh, yeah. Countertops, shelves, nowhere is safe.
That's the warning. The source explicitly says they will explore high places. So you need to cat-proof a bit. Secure breakables, or maybe install some dedicated cat shelves for climbing.
Give them approved highways in the sky.
Exactly. But, despite all that energy, the source does say they're not bouncing off the walls 200/4/7. They will definitely curl up for a good nap.
Hopefully near you, based on what you said earlier.
Ideally, yes.
So for you, the listener, thinking about a Bengal, the source paints a picture of needing an engaged owner, right? Someone ready for interaction in mental games, not just a furry decoration.
Now moving on to care. Physically, the soul says they're actually pretty low maintenance in one key area. Their coat.
Really? With that fancy fur?
Yeah, because it's short and dense, the article says a Mimply brush is usually enough to keep it looking good and manage shedding.
That's easier than I expected. And baths. You mentioned they might like water.
The source notes that, unlike most cats, they might actually tolerate or even enjoy an occasional bath, which could be handy.
Could be. And then the usual stuff, I assume, teeth, nails.
Yep, the source mentions regular toothbrushing and nail trims are important, just like for any cat breed. Standard maintenance there.
But the real work, based on what we've been saying, is probably the mental side.
That's exactly where the source puts the emphasis. Keeping that intelligent brain stimulated is crucial for their well-being.
So how do you do that, according to the article?
It recommends providing a wide range of experiences, especially early on. Introductions to different people, kids, other pets, even the car carrier and leash harness training.
Get them used to the world.
Right. And variety in playtime is important too. The source suggests rotating their toys so they don't get bored with the same old things.
Keep it fresh. Makes sense.
And there's a great quote in the article supporting clicker training. The expert says it keeps them mentally and physically stimulated. They have to think.
So it's about making them work their brains. Okay. So yeah, brush the fur, trim the nails, but the source is saying the main care aspect is really engaging their mind.
Health-wise, the source gives a pretty typical lifespan, 9 to 15 years, which is good news. And generally, they're characterized as a relatively healthy breed.
Okay, that's reassuring. But are there specific things the source mentions to watch out for? Breed-specific issues.
Yes, it lists 3 main potential concerns that prospective owners should know about. The first one is called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or HCM.
HCM, what does that involve?
Basically, it's a thickening of the heart muscle. The source explains it can lead to serious problems like blood clots, even congestive heart failure, and it might shorten their lifespan, particularly in older cats.
Okay, that sounds serious. What's the second one?
Progressive retinal atrophy, PRA. This is an eye condition. The source says the retina deteriorates over time, eventually causing blindness.
Oh, wow. Blindness. And the third issue, you said there were 3.
The third one mentioned is quite specific and important: anesthetic allergies.
Allergies to anesthesia. How does that work?
The source states that Bengals can have an extreme sensitivity, which carries a risk of cardiac arrest during procedures like spaying or neutering. It really stresses the need for careful monitoring by the vet if they need any surgery.
Yikes. That's definitely something a vet needs to know beforehand.
Absolutely crucial. Now, the article does add that responsible breeders screen for these genetic conditions to try and avoid passing them on.
That's good to hear.
But still, these are known vulnerabilities within the breed that owners should just be aware of.
Okay, let's rewind a bit, talk about their history. The source mentions early crosses, way back in the 1800s.
Yeah, the idea wasn't totally new, but the modern Bengal breed really owes its existence to one person highlighted in the source, Jean Mill.
Jean Mill,
Yeah.
a breeder and conservationist, right?
That's her. The source credits her with a key cross between a domestic cat and an Asian leopard cat back in 1963, which really kicked off the development of the breed as we know it.
So it took a while to catch on. When did they get, like, official recognition?
According to the source, it took some time. They were first accepted by some associations in 1983. Then the Cat Fanciers Association, the CFA, registered them in 1996.
Okay.
But the CFA had a condition only Bengals of the F6 generation or later, so further removed from the wild ancestor.
Gotcha. F6 or higher for the big leagues. And since then, popularity-wise?
The source says their popularity just skyrocketed, absolutely took off. It mentions they've even outpaced some much older, more established breeds in terms of how popular they've become.
Wow. What does the source say is the reason for that boom?
Well, it points to that winning combo we've been discussing. Their personality described as warm and intelligent, combined with that stunning eye-popping coat. The look pulls people in, and the personality keeps them hooked, apparently.
And the source throws in some fun trivia, too. Did you know Ian Anderson, the flutist from Jethro Tull, was an early Bengal fan? Helped promote the breed.
No way! That's a cool piece of rock and roll cat history.
Isn't it? The article also lists some other famous owners.
Yeah.
Jerry Seinfeld, Kristen Stewart, Kourtney Kardashian, Bruce Springsteen, Barbara Mandel, too. Quite the celebrity following.
They definitely attract attention. And the source mentions Thor, right? That famous Bengal on social media.
Oh, yeah, Thor. That cat is gorgeous. Really shows off that incredible coat the source keeps talking about.
Definitely a good ambassador for the breed's looks. The source also makes a point to debunk a myth, which is important.
What's the myth?
That Bengals are somehow immune to feline leukemia. The source clarifies. Nope, they're not. They're just as susceptible as any other cat.
Good to know. So they need vaccines if they're going outside or around other cats.
Exactly. Standard precautions apply. And one last little naming fact from the article.
Yeah.
Their name, Bengal.
No.
It doesn't actually come from the Bengal tiger.
Ooh, I might have assumed that. Where does it come from then?
It comes from the scientific name of their ancestor, the Asian leopard cat, Prionelurus bengalensis. The breed name is taken from that species name, bengalensis.
Bengals. Okay, that makes sense. Clever.
So yeah, wrapping up our deep dive based purely on this source material, it paints a really vivid picture of the Bengal, doesn't it? This mix of wild looks and, well, a very domestic but also very demanding personality.
Totally. We've covered their hybrid origins, why those F generations matter, the unique coat with those rosettes, their athletic build, then that contrast between the look and the sweet, smart, high-energy temperament.
Right, and their specific needs, needing to be close to people, needing things to climb, maybe needing a buddy if you're out a lot. Plus, the easy grooming, but the crucial need for mental stimulation.
Not forgetting those health points, the source flag, the HCM, the PRA, and especially that anesthetic sensitivity. That's a big one.
It really is. The source shows a breed that's exploded in popularity, probably because they offer that exotic look but are still affectionate pets, provided, and this seems key, that owners really understand and meet their needs.
So thinking about everything the source laid out, the wild roots, the high intelligence, the need for engagement, even the specific health risks, kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What does the huge popularity of a breed like the Bengal tell us about what we're looking for in companion animals these days? It's definitely not a low-maintenance pet, is it?
No, the source makes that very clear. Owning a Bengal seems like a real commitment to engagement, well beyond just admiring their beauty. Definitely something for potential owners to think about.